Okay, so this video is going to be different than what I normally do. I want to give you guys an in depth look at what goes into the mind of a child when affected by severe trauma. Now, I know for a lot of you, some of you have an understanding of this, but I wanted to give a view from someone who actually has dealt with the trauma and who was severely affected by this. And the reason why I wanted to come from my point of view is because all you ever hear are from doctors or journalists or reporters and not the actual person affected by it. Not a lot of people can actually speak on what they went through and basically what went on when it comes to the brain chemistry and how it affects your personality and all of that once you grow into adulthood, not only reliving your trauma, but living through your trauma, which is what I see a lot of people do. Hey, beautiful souls. So, obviously, this video is going to be a little different, and the first slide that I need to get into is going to be a lot for some people, and I need to break it down from my perspective, from what I went through, just so you guys can get an idea that, you know, your trauma can would last within a lifetime. And, a lot of people tend to not only live through their trauma, but they repeat the trauma that they endured onto their children, or they repeat it onto their relationships they decide to get into, whether they have children or not. And if you look at the left side of the slide, it's, you know, what is the cause, and then you have the right side, which is the effect. And I'm going to go through the right side first because that makes more sense, obviously. And for someone like myself, the complex post traumatic stress disorder tends to not only live throughout a lifetime, but I cannot get rid of this. This is something that is going to be with me until I take my last breath. And a lot of people just assume that they can't get rid of this, you know, this torment. They can't get rid of this disease. They cannot get rid of whatever is eating them up inside. And you can manage the symptoms, and you can, you know, heal yourself from within, as I've pointed out in so many ways and so many aspects throughout my life, and in turn helping other people. So the first thing is no bond at birth. And for those of you who have no idea, this will cause attachment issues within the child leading into an adult. And what that means is the mother did not carry the child at all during the time of birth. So usually when a mom gives birth, they give that, they tend to give the child right away to the mom. Unfortunately for my case, because I came out severely disabled, um, they were actually afraid to give me to my mom. They were afraid that she would hurt me. They were afraid that she would freak out. They were afraid that it wasn't going to end well, um, on my end, simply because of all of the birth defects that they saw on me physically. And at the time, they didn't realize, I had vision problems, I had hearing problems, and I had significant brain damage. They didn't figure all of this out until later on in my life. So there's that aspect where a child becomes detached at a very young age, and then it lives on throughout their lifetime as an adult. So that is the first thing. And then the second, obviously, is dealing with multiple disabilities, not knowing what really to do with that, because I didn't walk, talk, or pretty much do anything as a normal child until I was 3 years old. And I had to be in speech therapy. So prior to that, prior to, not doing anything, I had to rely on, my parents, and I had to get built that trust even though I didn't trust them and they didn't trust me. Like, they had their own issues that they couldn't deal with, and essentially they took that out on me. So it was just like frustration for the both of us. And I actually started my self harm before the age of 3. I would hurt myself, and not realizing as a young child that that would alleviate the frustration. Um, but if you think about it in that sense, I didn't know how else to alleviate my frustration, so I would, hit the table with like the side of my hand, or I would hit myself, or I would smack myself. And um, a lot of children that are in the spectrum, the with autism, and then a lot of children that are more along the lines of having, significant brain damage, whether they have Down syndrome, whether it is mental retardation, whether they're seen as a vegetable, whatever the case may be, tend to hurt themselves as well because of the frustration. They cannot, uh, not only can they not express themselves, but they can't really do anything. So it is a sense of alleviation for the child that is basically feels like they can't do anything. So that's where that comes from. And then the first, you know, attempt of the first trauma, obviously I can't specifically talk about on this channel because I will be suppressed. I'm not monetized, so I can't specifically say what I want to. If you guys need to hear more details, I suggest you go on my podcast. And obviously, I'm not going to go fully into detail. I go into a little bit of detail, but I try not to get too graphic and too crazy because I know that it is, triggering even for people that have never dealt with these types of situations. And then obviously, the sexual abuse started at a very young age, before the age of 7. And then I had to be, you know, sexually tortured and sexually assaulted. And that started from the age of 7 until 9. And that's when the, sex trafficking started also. And then on top of that, there was emotional abuse thrown in there. So the sex trafficking, I had to endure a lot. A lot of SRA, a lot of torture, a lot of, I basically was being punished for many, many, many different reasons. And again, if you need to know the details on that, it is in my podcast. And I will obviously link everything below. And then people think that, if you are abused for a significant amount of time, that's actually what causes the mental health issues, and it's a lot deeper than that, and it's much more than that, and a lot of people don't realize at all um, how significant that runs not only through your mental state, but it potentially leaves you with, okay, I can't trust anyone. I can't even trust the people in my family that's supposed to help me, that's supposed to provide for me, that's supposed to, you know, uh, protect me. And then, you add another layer of I can't trust anyone. I can't, I don't know how to function in so many aspects. So that's where a lot of the survival skills, when it comes to, you know, impulse control and psychosis and depression, anxiety, body dysmorphia, the obsessive compulsive disorder, and then, the eating disorder. And all of these intertwine for myself because of the, you know, CPTSD. So the anxiety and depression were actually first, and then comes in of the psychosis because after I had to be sex trafficked within my family, I ended up hearing voices. This was my first alarming thing as a child that, this isn't normal. But I knew what it actually was. I knew it was the mindset of what they were trying to do and what they were trying to accomplish. They were basically trying to break me down with the results of what they were doing. And over the years, it took a lot. I mean, I'm not on any type of medications. When you have a lot of rare, mental illnesses, you can't be on medications. Like I'm considered non-respondent and non-resistant to any type of medications, not just psych meds. So I consider that a blessing. I consider that a blessing that I'm not, solely dependent on something that isn't going to work long term anyway. And I know that that is controversial in the mental health community because so many people are reliant and addicted essentially to these medications. Um, but I consider that a blessing, and I have worked so many years to get to where I am today. And a lot of people that I still talk to today uh, still can't believe that I'm able to do so. And it's not only that, but it's also kind of like an insult because a lot of people just believe that there's no way that I'm able to do this, or it's not possible, or it's not feasible. And let's be in all honesty, anything is possible. Like really, anything is possible, but nobody wants to believe that anymore because, you know, everybody has lost hope. There's so many people that have lost hope, and there's really only so much I can do about that, you know? So, with this next slide, you could clearly see that the effects of everything that has happened to me, it's it not only brought me to a state of defeat, it also brought me to, severe anger with, the world, with society, with myself. And I had gotten to the point by the time I was a teenager, by the time I was um, a freshman in high school, I was basically done. Like, I didn't care about myself. and I became reckless, from the ages of 15 until about the ages of 15 until I was 20. Simply because when I was 15, my father had passed away, and that was the person that was you know, the predator. And something truly does happen to you when that happens. It truly, you basically lose your mind. Um, because you're split into, like, you lose your a sense of self, you lose your identity, and you don't know what to make of it when the person gets their karma and the person dies, and you don't know what to make of it, really. So a lot of people didn't know what I was going through. A lot of people that knew me at those times, I've hid a lot. I felt like I really had no choice because living a double life for so many years, there was nobody that was gonna help me or save me. And you know, I had even gotten to the point where I prayed about every day when I was a child that, please don't allow this to happen. And then I felt like things got worse and worse and worse. So ultimately, I was grateful to survive. Ultimately, I was, you know, um, glad that, I didn't end up like the rest did that I've had to witness. And obviously, I can't talk about that. But again, if you follow my podcast, you will get a sense of what I'm talking about and where I'm at. And if you already listen to my podcast, you don't have to reiterate that because it's intense and it's a lot. And I appreciate those who actually do, follow the podcast because it is intense. But you also get a clear sense of why I am the way I am and how far I've come and what steps I took to get there. And I took a lot out of me as a child, and there were so many times where I thought I wasn't gonna make it. So as far as like the results go, I had a lot of suicide attempts, 20 years to be exact, from the age of 8. And then I felt like I was nothing without being brought up to who I was. So it was like a form of, it was like a sense of, brainwashing. And, I felt like that's just who I was, unfortunately, as a young child, because you're thrown into that and that's all you're seen as. You're just seen as an object, and eventually it got to the point where I just felt like I was worthless. And a lot of the times I isolated myself. So I would find different ways to relieve the pain at a young age, because this was, obviously prior to learning like all of the self-destructive behaviors. You know, uh, I would draw, I would write, I would paint, I would run, I would, just distract myself playing outside. Um, I did so many different things to try and alleviate the pain, and I learned really quickly that it wasn't enough. Like, I needed something more drastic, and I learned that from my family as well. That you gotta avoid your feelings and learn to escape early in life, and that's just how you get through life. That's unfortunately another thing that I learned from the family I came from. And even though I was angry at the world and I, just took my anger out on a lot of people, I was still, in a sense, trying to hurt myself as much, if not more than anyone else. And I tried so hard to not take it out on other people that it didn't get, like, it wasn't anybody else's fault. You know what I mean? Like, it was just something that I had to go through. But I felt like a lot of people were testing me, a lot of people were testing my boundaries, and I wasn't having that either. Like, I was just trying to deal with everything that I went through on top of trying to deal with other people's ignorance and drama and BS and all of that. Because when you're around, the time you're around a teenager, like, there's nothing but ignorance surrounding you. Like, nobody gets it. People, as teenagers, people act like they know what they're doing, what they're talking about, and they have no idea what other people go through. They have no idea that other people are actually hurting around them because they live a sheltered life, and they act like anyone, like everyone has no care in the world, and that's a lie. But a lot of people just assumed I was, insane. A lot of people just assumed I was crazy, and I didn't deserve. I mean, I've been told a lot that too when I was a teenager, that I didn't deserve friends. I didn't deserve to be alive. Like, there was just so much coming at me, and it made more sense to divulge into my addictions, whether it was the self-harm, whether it was the eating disorders, whether it was, drinking and drugs. I was just, nothing was ever enough when it came to escaping, so it was like I had to do everything at once. And obviously it almost killed me, so that's essentially what made me get better, on top of the motivation of having the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And eventually this disease will kill me. Eventually this is something that I can't, come back from. So there is a middle slide, but obviously I can't talk about that on YouTube. So if you guys were able to get through this video, you guys feel free to go to my podcast, and I will link the video, or I will link the episode below, so that you guys don't have to worry about trying to find, me on, whether it's Spotify, whether it's Apple Podcasts, or whatever you use for your podcast essentials. And I appreciate those who took the time to listen, and I will talk to you guys very, very, very soon.
Come on, what to say now? All right, yep. Come on, come on, come on. What to say now? All right, you've been smiling since the song came on. Don't play. Come on, yeah. What to say now? All right, come on, come on, come on. Yep. What to say now? All right, yep. You better get your heaven right.